In this video I want to present some key research tools that have really helped me, that lie behind a lot of the topics I present on this channel, and they may be helpful for you. This might be my own personal preferences, maybe you will have other suggestions and recommendations for me. But first off, I would highly recommend a Kindle. I must have downloaded hundreds of texts on this. It's so useful for looking into maybe even more obscure things from the past. If I'm reading a book on some historical era and it mentions a pamphlet or an author I hadn't heard of before from the past, it's very likely that I'll be able to find it for free in the public domain on Project Gutenberg or Wikisource, and be able to read it in an instant. And I can't count the useful things I've discovered and found through this method. Anything from some of Plato's dialogues to Thomas Hobbes's Behemoth, his history of the English Civil War, to more recently a number of very good introductory lectures or books by authors mainly in the late Victorian or Edwardian eras. It seemed to be a time which was very good for these kind of books, which open up a whole avenue of discovery, like Arthur Symons's Symbolist movement in literature, which really opened up the world of French literature of the 19th century for me. And just browsing through Gutenberg, you can often find these kinds of works, which may be by someone you've never heard of, but can really provide a very handy introduction to a new avenue of research, which you may well need to go on to JSTOR to register for their 100 free articles a month to sort of get up to speed on what the latest scholarship has to say on things. But the Kindle is definitely a cornerstone of how I investigate and research the past and literary history, and I would recommend it to anyone. Next, a good anthology of poetry, the Oxford Book of English Verse, edited by Christopher Ricks, is what I use. Going from the medieval era up to near the present day. It's vital to have something like this just to look up familiar names, unfamiliar names, as a launch pad for further research. So I highly recommend having a good anthology like that. In terms of literary theory, I've read a number of introductions which have all been helpful, but I still return to Terry Eagleton's bestseller, which came out in the 80s, I believe, which, as with much of Eagleton's work, is very humorous, very fresh and accessible, and does a good job at describing some of the major developments in literary theory. It also really opened up a materialist reading of English studies, of the rise of English, for me in the Victorian era particularly, which really brought me back to literary theory after a few years of not really reading into this kind of thing. I would want to temper what he says in that chapter, probably nuanced with something like John Guillory's thinking, John Guillory's Cultural Capital, in which he emphasises the role of institutions in the shaping of what we understand as literature. But Eagleton's book is still a good way to get up to speed with literary theory in general, and with the recommended reading section for each chapter will be a good springboard for looking into the primary texts themselves, many of which can be found in David Lodge's books, David Lodge's Readers. 20th Century Literary Criticism is a very good anthology of what I might call trad lit crit, going from James, I think, no, sorry, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, Freud's in there, C.S. Lewis, and much more besides. It's a useful place to start with that era of literary criticism. And then Lodge's follow-up, Modern Criticism and Theory, is a very good collection of the French theorists particularly, but others as well. Foucault's in there, Jacques Derrida. It starts with Saussure, who had such an influence on this intellectual stream. I'd say the essay by Derrida in here might be almost the only one you really need to read from him. It's relatively accessible and understandable for Derrida. Maybe some Derridians out there will hate me for that, but it's in here, and others of great importance are there as well, so that's certainly worth a look. As is Fredric Jameson's posthumously published lectures on French theory. I highly recommend these to get a good understanding of post-war French thought to the present. Usually Jameson writes in a difficult style, but in this, because they're transcripts of his lectures, they are relatively accessible and very useful. Also, this Continental Philosophy Reader, edited by Richard Kearney and Mara Rainwater, has proved to be extremely valuable. Texts from Sartre, Adorno, Hannah Arendt, Lukács, Gadamer is all in here, and that will definitely be worth getting. And finally, I've only had this for a few weeks, but I came across it in a charity shop. It's J.A. Cudden's Dictionary of Literary Terms and Literary Theory. And in many ways, this brings together all of the interests that I have on this channel. He will discuss theoretical concepts, structuralism, post-structuralism, post-modernity, and so on. But he also touches on literary history. He'll tell you who the Cavalier poets were in the 17th century, or the Bloomsbury group, but also more technical aspects, poetic meter, alliteration, caesura, and so on. All these things can be found in here, and it's a genuinely good read. So those are some things that I use regularly to research into many of the things that I'm interested in and I discuss here. Maybe they'll help you. If you have any other suggestions or questions, anything you want me to recommend further in other fields, do post a comment and I'll reply.